So in this video series, I'm going to do a couple things here to the bike. First off, the major thing that I'm going to be doing is removing the swing arm. What I found out recently was the part where the spools mount to have cracked, and I wanted to take the swing arm off and bring it to a machine shop so they can re-weld the cracked area. Apparently, this is quite common with many motorcycles with swing arm spools, because what happens is when you crash the bike, the spools come in contact with the ground. The welds aren't designed to be taking that type of force, and they usually crack or they break off. So basically, in my case, this is what happened. It cracked after my crash earlier this year, and I just noticed it now. But thankfully, the crack isn't that major. I can actually still ride this safely. But first, in order to get the swing arm off, you got to cut the chain, or you can actually cut the chain afterwards. But I like to do that first because I will be changing the chain and sprockets anyway, so I might as well do that and get it over with. So to prepare myself for the swing arm removal, you basically have to take the load off the rear shock. So what I have already done is I put the bike on jack stands, and this is just a jacking point where basically it's on the frame, so there's so it's pretty secure there. So how I did this was I used my rear stand. I jacked it up. I had a rod through here rather than using the swing arm spools. I had a rod through here, same thing. You just put it on these hooks, pull it up, and these jack stands actually fit. The height clearance was actually perfect, so I was able to fit it under there. And when I removed the rear stand, it was fine. It came to rest on the jack stands. So with my particular bike, I have to remove these crash bars first. It just makes it easier to access the front sprocket. So I'm just going to the other side and pulling this bolt through. Okay, and there we have it. Now I'm going to try to do the service without loosening the front bolt, because that's quite a hassle. I gotta take the fairing apart, and it's a bit of work. So if I can just pivot this and expose the swing arm bolt, that would actually help. Okay, but then I still got to remember to tighten that bolt, because now that it's broken loose a little bit, it's better to have it tighten in the end. Okay, so now the swing arm axle is exposed. We'll just leave it there for now, because I'm not doing the swing arm at the moment. So back onto this side, I've got to remove the crash bar. Okay, rather than removing the crash bar, I just have it out of the way. So now that I'm fully accessible to either to both ends here, I can continue. So the cover gets removed with a couple 8mm bolts. Just remember the length, because there are two bolts that should be longer. The top one here is longer than the bottom one. but I don't quite remember, so we'll find out. Okay, so the two shorter ones are on the bottom, and the two longer ones are at the top. And also it'll make it easier if you remove the speed sensor, also held in by a 8mm bolt. And this cover should just come right off. And there it is, there's your front sprocket. So a lot of people are having troubles getting this sprocket off because at the factory, I guess they torqued it down real tight. Hopefully I won't have too much trouble because I just have an impact wrench or an impact gun that can go up to 240 foot-pounds. So we'll see if I have to bring out the breaker bar or not. And also, a lot of people forget the washer here. I'm not sure if you can see, but it's been flattened down here. Make sure that you pound that straight before attempting to remove it, otherwise the removal will be very difficult. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So all I'm doing here is using a hammer and a chisel, and I'm slowly tapping this washer flat. So it's starting to come along nicely, so I'm going to continue to do that, and I'll show you the aftermath after I finish. So now with the washer pound flat out of the way, we can now go on to removing this nut here. So this nut is a 27mm socket. Now before you go blasting away at this nut, make sure your transmission is in neutral. You don't want to be putting a lot of stress on the internals of the transmission by putting it in gear. Also, take the time, or rather put a bar through the rear wheel and use some old rags to for padding, so it doesn't scratch up your swing arm, and so you don't scratch up your rims either. And with that said, since I'm removing the chain, changing the chain anyway, I don't really care if I damage the chain. So now I can go ahead and attempt to get this sprocket off. And there you have it. Nut comes off really easily. I don't know what why people are saying it's so hard to get off. I'm actually pretty happy that I was able to get it off with very minimal effort.